So I wanted to talk about this topic quite some time on my channel, but I never got around to filming this video. But it's funny, I'm actually back in front of the camera and I'm going to talk about this situation just because, well, I am a gamer and I do want to throw my opinions out there on this huge topic, and this is a pretty big topic to talk about. So I'm actually talking about this also just because recently it looks like it's getting pretty bad with some other games, and I want to talk about the whole situation. So I'm in front of the camera right now talking about this whole situation. I'm talking about microtransactions and loot boxes in video games. Now, microtransactions and loot boxes in video games have been around for quite some time now. They're not a new business practice in the gaming industry, whether that's mobile or whether that's AAA games. They have been around for quite some time now. But the thing is, recently in the last couple of years, this situation has been getting pretty bad. For instance, last year, EA's Battlefront 2 was plagued with a lot of microtransactions and loot boxes, and you know how the gaming industry feels about this. When you're paying for games that are mostly $60 a piece, then of course a lot of people are going to be mad about the whole situation. Also, a game, Shadow of War. Shadow of War was a game that had a lot of microtransactions and loot boxes in it, and a lot of people just weren't a fan of those as well. Me personally, I'm just like many gamers out there. Most gamers are going to tell you they're not a fan of these loot boxes and microtransactions in game. But to be fair, I can't blame them since these games are so expensive. You don't want to pay for a $60 game and then feel like you have to buy these microtransactions, or even if you're not forced to, you don't want to feel like that they're flooding you with microtransactions and loot boxes and it's ruining your whole experience, because every level or every stage you're getting these pop-ups that say, please buy this microtransaction, please pay for this item, and it's really frustrating. Now, my whole experience with microtransactions and loot boxes goes like this. For instance, if developers want to put microtransactions or loot boxes for cosmetic items, I am slightly okay with this. I'm still not okay with this because it does kind of ruin the experience, just because I will get pop-ups from time to time and I will see things that like say, pay for this cosmetic item, pay for this suit, pay for this color option, pay for these clothing, pay for this different hairstyle, etc., etc., etc. But that really doesn't bother me too much because those are just cosmetic things and they really don't alter your experience too much. They're not too big of a deal. But when companies like EA and other companies out there start altering online multiplayer, are locking up even single player features of the game and forcing you to pay for them when you already paid for a $60 game, is absolutely ridiculous, and it needs to stop. This business practice of putting microtransactions and forcing you to pay for certain things in the game which are locked up, or especially online multiplayer games, is unridiculous. Let's say, for instance, you're playing an online multiplayer game like Call of Duty, and it says you can get this gun for whatever the amount is, and you pay for this gun, then you're pretty much getting a better advantage over your opponent because you paid for a microtransaction which another player may not pay for, and that's not a good experience you want. You don't want to feel like you're losing to another player just because they're not better than you. They paid for this gun with a microtransaction or a loot box, so they have an advantage. Maybe you don't want to pay for that gun or skill, or maybe you can't pay for that because you're physically broke and you just want to play the game. You paid that $60 for it, but since you're getting an unfair advantage because someone else bought something better in the game with a microtransaction, is not a good experience. And I can see why a lot of people don't like that, and I don't like that at all either, because that's not just a fun experience. You want to feel like you're beating your opponent fair in an online multiplayer game. You want to feel like that your skill level is better than your opponent. You don't want to feel like they just bought their way out. They bought their way through their online experience and they're better than you because they paid for what they paid for, and that's just not a good business practice to do. So I can see why a lot of people in the gaming industry are upset of these microtransactions and loot boxes in games, and the fact that games are $60 a piece, and it's just not a good business practice at all. Well, it looks like there's even more worse things happening with some other games out in the market. The one right now that's really getting a lot of flack from gamers is Metal Gear Survive. Metal Gear Survive I have not played. I know this may sound not too good for a lot of you, but I'm not really a big fan of the Metal Gear Solid games. I just really couldn't get into them. I have tried them in the past, but they're just not my cup of tea. But I know that they're good games, and I am acknowledging why they're good games. I can see why people like the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and I know why it sells. It's just a very good game. I can't admit that. But one thing I can agree with and I have to disagree with, and I think most people are not going to be okay with the new Metal Gear Survive, is they're actually putting unnecessary microtransactions in the game. What am I talking about? Well, they're actually ripping out one very important feature that's been in video games for many years. A simple thing that they took out, which is saving files. If you want to have multiple save files in Metal Gear Survive, you have to pay a premium, and that is absolutely ridiculous. I almost want to get really mad, but it's hard for me to get really mad on camera, and I don't really show that type of emotion, but it's just ridiculous and dumb how they're actually doing this. Konami is turning to a really sour company. It's just a really shady business practice. Now, one thing I will say is the game is not $60. I have to say that again, $60. It's only a $40 release from what I'm aware. I could be wrong, but I looked up the price and it looks like Metal Gear Survive is a $40 game. But if you unlock these save files to have multiple save files in the game, it's actually going to cost you $10 above the $40. So now you're tacking on $10. You're tacking on $50 for the whole experience, and this is a really bad experience for the gamers. A simple feature that's been in games forever, and now you're gonna rip it out and charge $10 for it is absolutely insane. Sure, they could have been like, well, we'll just make this a paid feature, and you'll have to pay for it on top of your purchase. But we'll charge gamers $1. But no. Konami had enough sense in their brain to say, hey, let's charge $10. And the sad thing is with Konami and this whole damn situation, which I'm going to cuss a lot, I don't care. This is the dumbest thing I've seen. And the thing is, you have to realize this $10 that you paid for a game save in Metal Gear Survive, you could have bought some DLC. I've seen DLC out on the market that's equivalent to $10. And as you know, with the indie game industry, there are games out there that are $10, which are absolutely really good experience. I could probably name a couple of indie games that are $10 right now. You're better off buying an indie game or DLC or even buying a pizza with this money instead of buying a save slot in Metal Gear Solid. It's just damn ridiculous that you have to pay to get another game save in the game. Sure, you may not have a reason to pay for these game save slots, but it's just damn ridiculous. It's even locked behind a paywall, and it's a microtransaction. That's dumb. Honestly, I think nobody should support Metal Gear Survive just because that is the dumbest practice. And the reason I say we should not support Metal Gear Survive for this dumb practice is because if you support practices like this, even buying the game, I think is not really good to buy this game. I know that's subjective, so I want to make this very clear. Of course, the main game could be very good. I also heard other things about Metal Gear Survive where it's not just the game save files which are locked behind a paywall. If you want to have multiple game saves other than your current one, is the fact I heard there's some other microtransactions and some other loot boxes in the game which break the experience as well. So there's some other bad stuff in the game. I can't confirm those because I don't know really too much about those, but I do know about the game save feature. But going back to what I was saying was the reason you shouldn't support this game, because if you support this game, then maybe some other developers on the market are going to keep seeing people supporting these practices, and we're going to keep seeing these loot boxes and microtransactions in video games for a very long time. And the problem is with this shady business practice as well is somebody buys Metal Gear Survive and they actually pay for those game save slots, which are $10 extra if you want to have multiple ones. So I can see some people buying, because I don't know if you're aware of this, there have been some, excuse me, I want to make this very clearly, sorry, I'm like stuttering, but I want to make this very clear. There's been some cases in the past where people have paid for these microtransactions and loot boxes in AAA games. For instance, recently, a couple of weeks ago, somebody actually bought one of the rarest gun skins in Counter-Strike, which was $60,000. Yes, it was one of the rarest skins in CSGO, and somebody paid $60,000 for that. And another instance, a couple years ago, some kid was actually playing FIFA My Team, I think, or FIFA Ultimate Team, or whatever it's called, and he actually stole his parents' credit card, and he actually went and bought a whole bunch of packs to make the best team he could. Then I heard another story where this kid was so addicted, he spent all of his life savings to buy these microtransactions in things and games, which I just don't understand why you would do, because once these games servers shut down, or once these games get too old, will you really care about these microtransactions game, and will those purchases still be available many years down the line? It's really hard to tell, and there's really no way to tell. But what I'm basically saying is here, if people like those people who are spending $60,000 buying Ultimate Team packs, just wasting their life savings on these microtransactions and loot boxes and games, then we're gonna keep seeing these practices in the gaming industry. Will it be all companies? Of course, it will never be all companies, because there's companies out there that do have dignity and do care about gamers' souls, and they have a heart. They don't want to trash us, and they don't want to keep ripping money out of our pockets and keep nickeling and diming us for everything we're worth. So there are companies out there, which is the good news. It just ultimately sucks that there's people out there who just want to continue to support this business practice, and that's why it's not probably never going to go away, or it's not going to go away for a long time. What I think needs to happen is, I think the government needs to actually step in and actually regulate this whole thing. I actually heard some governments, or at least in the US, was actually thinking about in some places actually regulating loot boxes just because they actually consider this some form of gambling. And since they consider this some form of gambling, you know, a lot of kids or some kids play video games which are under the age of 21, so they can't really gamble, so they can consider gambling and they can shut this business practice down. Will this business practice ever be shut down? It's really hard to tell. Also, another reason this is not going away, which is pretty much why I wanted to make a video on this in the first place, is the fact last year Activision did confirm that they had more microtransactions and loot box sales than the actual sales of their AAA games. I know I did look into some research, and people have been saying that Activision owns King. If you know King is a company that actually makes mobile games. They make a lot of those puzzle games. For instance, they make Candy Crush Saga. Candy Crush Saga is a mobile game with a lot of microtransactions in the game where you can pay for stuff. And of course you would think, well, a lot of their sales came from that game, which is correct, but they still sold so many microtransactions in their AAA games, which is very, very ridiculous. And that goes to show you that there's people out there, not just the people I mentioned, but there's so many people out there buying these and supporting these microtransactions, that it's never going to go away. And I do think in the future it's only going to get worse. This business practice is only going to get worse. If we already seen things like Metal Gear Survive locking extra game saves to microtransactions, then we're going to start seeing it in other games, and it's only going to get worse because they know that people are going to pay for those microtransactions, and they're going to be able to nickel and dime us. The only way to stop this is to stop people from doing it, but there's people who do it anyway, and it's never going to stop because there's people out there that can support this. I don't know why people would want to support this practice. I don't really care. Like I said again, I do not care if it's cosmetics, but the problem is a lot of these things that they're pulling out aren't just cosmetical things. They're actually things that alter your gaming experience, not just cosmetically. They're actually altering your experience in some other way, and it's really disgusting. We can see it from Konami. So pretty much Konami is pretty much a dead company to me. Konami doing this practice is just bad, and I don't support this business practice, and I think it's a damn shame that video games are turning to what they are turning today. It's just a shame that Konami had to pull this stuff. Also, there's been a lot of bad stuff going on with Konami lately. I'm not going to talk about everything Konami has been doing, but there's been a lot of bad things Konami has been doing as a company. So as of right now, Konami is pretty much dead to me, no good to me. Just ridiculous that they even wanted to pull this stunt. Anyway, guys, this is Wayne from My Tech News, signing out.